Welcome to College Football Roundtable, your source for college football coverage, including major storylines,
playoffs,
can't miss game previews, and picks each week. Join your hosts, Dan, Rob, and Jordan at the Roundtable for a show unlike anything else. As for Football presents the College Football Roundtable.
Happy Beat Navy Week, everyone. Week 16, greatest rivalry in sports, renewed Army-Navy in Baltimore. This is the As for Football Army Football Show. Thank you for joining us. It's your host, Jordan, in Madison, Alabama, joined by Dan in Coastal Connecticut, Rob in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Captain Cons in New Jersey, special guest from Barstool. Normally, we make a joke about where people are from. Cons, I know you're very defensive of the state of New Jersey, so I will not make a New Jersey joke. Instead, I'll make another Fayetteville joke at Rob's expense because Fayetteville's easy to pick on. But guys, how are we doing?
Good, man. I am excited. Been busy as all hell trying to get our trip down to Baltimore for the game straightened out. We got our list of potential folks to interview. It was gigantic. Spent some time going over that with the crew, and yeah, man, it's like I'm in work mode. Like this is work. I don't usually think of As for Football as work, but like it's been work this week, and I know Rob's been working pretty hard too.
Dan, I feel like we owe it to our listeners to let them know what happened today. I know we have a lot of people who are concerned, about your age and your mental faculties. Do you want to tell everyone what happened to you today?
So I left my phone in the bathroom on my way out the door today, and yeah, it blew up my whole day because it's got my train ticket on it. I needed the hotspot to write this outline. It was a mess. My wife already made fun of me plenty, Jordan. So you're welcome. Thank you, I guess. But yeah, yikes.
Just kind of a boomer move, but I mean whatever. You didn't have the phone, like you didn't notice that your hip holster was empty and like.
All right. So some of us ride to work on a folding bicycle despite being ancient, and no, I did not notice that it wasn't in its little holder in my backpack.
Is it one of those bikes that has a really really big front wheel and then a really small back wheel?
That would be cool, but unfortunately,
wait. So,
no.
Dan, do you not listen to music, podcasts, books, nothing on your commute? You just listen, or do you read? Like, what do you do on your commute?
Just
Obviously,
stare straight ahead.
I write. The As for Football Army Football Show exists because I have an hour train commute either way, and that's what I do with my time. So yeah, almost right. I would say 75% of the content that I put out personally on the site, and lots more that gets edited by me, gets done on Metro North using my hotspot, like the vast majority.
Gotcha. I was just trying to understand.
No, and honestly, I'm 65,000 words into a book, The Return of Dr. Necropolis, that I have also been working on the train. Dude, I'm telling you, I've written so much on the train, you have no idea. Like 10 books now. Seriously.
Nice. Cons, we've had you on the show before. Obviously, big. When you think of Army football, Barstool, like in that Venn diagram, like you kind of exist in that little area in the middle. So most of our listeners know who you are. They've interacted with you on Twitter. But just for those people who this is maybe their first time tuning in, would you mind telling everyone a little bit about yourself, class, company, major, what you did in the Army as a cadet? Just kind of give us the 2 or 3 minute little elevator pitch.
Sure thing. Yes, as you mentioned, from New Jersey, born and bred proudly, and it's not defensive. It's just that I'm proud to be from New Jersey, and I need to be boisterous about that because people think ill of New Jersey. So it's incumbent upon folks like myself to remind them how great New Jersey is. I played Army football. I was quarterback, backup quarterback, holder extraordinaire, never muffed a single snap in a game. I still hold that distinction. I graduated in 2006, stayed on as a grad assistant coach for a full year with the football team, which was an exquisite time. because West Point is a great place when you're not a cadet and you're an officer and nobody's yelling at you and you don't have to be in formation. It's actually pretty fantastic. While I was in school, I majored in law because I hated math and science, which, great idea. Go to an engineering school if you don't like those two. But I found my way to the law department, which was fantastic. I served 5.5 years active duty as an artillery officer, deployed to Iraq in 2008 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And then I got off of active duty, moved back to New Jersey, and that's where I am today. Wife, 2 kids, doing the Barstool thing, as you mentioned. Fervent Army football fan, very, very active season ticket holder. So all things Army football.
Yeah, all the things. Well, hey, while we're talking about Army football, Army sits at 6-5. We've won a few big games, but we also lost to an FCS team at home. And for that matter, we've only won 2 games at home. When you look at this year kind of in totality, do you feel like it's been a successful season, or are you a little disappointed? I know that you will defend Army to the death, but on the show amongst friends, are you happy with the way the season's turned out, or are you kind of a little disappointed?
Well, you're asking me 2 different questions there. Am I happy, or do I think it's successful? Am I happy? No, I'm not happy.
Okay.
But in that vein, I'm not happy because of the standard and the bar that we've set now in the last decade or so, that our expectations have shifted. If it was when I was playing, if you had told me, hey, you're going to be, a 6-win team going to a bowl with an opportunity to win the CIC, I'm pretty ecstatic, but we've come to expect better than I think what we've seen results wise. I think the team has played exceptionally well and tough. Just certainly, it's tough as a football fan to lose the games in the fashion that we've lost. It's one thing you lose one game on a heartbreaker, a bounce doesn't go your way. But it feels like there are multiple games this year where a bounce didn't go our way, and now we see ourselves sitting at 6-5. And you can play the what if game, which I know is silly, but you can what if it to death and think like, oh man, could we be 8-3 right now? Could we be 9-2? I don't know. So is it successful? I would say ask me on Sunday, because I would say, if we come away from the year with the CIC, that's a success, because that's certainly one of our goals every year is to win the CIC. So doing that would be a success. Getting back to a bowl game would be a good thing. Winning that bowl game would be a success. I think it's still important to win bowl games. So I don't know that it's fair to answer that in totality just yet, but overall, I wish we would have had some bounces go our way. I'll say that.
It is, I really loathe the 1-game season, but this game, this weekend, is really important to define this season in a way that I don't necessarily feel was true last year. I mean, there's no arguing that a 12-2 season is bad, despite the fact that you are disappointed, obviously, with how this particular game is. But yeah, this particular game is coming up this weekend. I think it's really going to say a lot about
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll dive into just a pile on. I think one of the other things is it's college football, and I always talk about the psychology of it, and it's about tapping in the human potential, right? We see a lot of potential on the field, and from a player standpoint, like, hey, maybe these guys are giving their best effort, and it was best that they could do, and they left it on the field. From the coaches are always going to demand more. And I think there's only one group of people that demands more from, the team than the players and the coaches. And those are the fanatical fans, right? And like, there are a lot of people that can't watch football with a healthy level of detachment. And so that creates an emotional response when things don't go your way. But like, if you've watched enough football, you realize that like them's the break sometimes, and it really, it can color the way that you watch the games, and for me, if I had the time to actually grade, I would probably watch them a lot more and a lot longer, but I typically, just watch for the front 7 and then I go from there. But that's the way that I do it. Wouldn't suggest that for everyone, because like not everybody played defensive line or offensive line in high school or college, so it changes your perspective. You watch the position that you played, and if you're just a fan of football and you want to see explosive plays, then you're probably not really watching Army, because Army doesn't have a lot of explosive plays, at least not this season, right? Or the ones that they have been few and far between. But I think there's been some benefit to that too. If you've watched the games, like you score too quickly and then you're putting yourself in a position where the other team has more touches on the ball. But it'll be interesting going into Saturday because, I think explosiveness could hurt you in a contest like this. Service Academy games, explosiveness, usually the team that has the most explosive plays doesn't necessarily always win.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about plays and the type of plays, Cons, it seems like everyone blames play calling for everything. And I know I've been guilty of that in the Brent Davis era, especially. But it seems like it's the easiest scapegoat for every bad thing that happens on the Army field. Oh, why'd you call, midline? Why didn't you do you think that's a fair criticism? Obviously, there's analytics and there's, we're not in practice and stuff like that. But for if I'm a fan watching football and we're running the same play 3 or 4 times in the row and it's not doing anything, is it fair for me to be frustrated with that? Or do you think there's more going on that we don't see?
I think it's fair to be frustrated, but then you need to take a step back. And I would say conservatively, you're working with, call it 25% of the information that the coaches, what the coaches have when it goes into why they call the particular play. And I'm always colored by that, right? Because I was, on the headsets on an offensive, play calling and knowing what goes into that game planning. And especially now when you talk about analytics, it's so much more than just like, should we go for it on 4th and short? I mean, you're talking about, you have percentages. It's actually almost overwhelming how much information these coaches have now. I mean, you can get it down to, if it's 3rd and medium and you are, between the 40s and it's the 3rd quarter and you're down by this many points, we expect their defense to be this. I mean, that's the level that they're dealing with. So, part of it is, let's just line up and, let's go get a yard. And, that looks funny when we're lining up in shotgun, when we're an option team by and large, and we should be able to just get a yard under center. But I promise you there's a very specific reason why that formation was called, why that play was called. So I'm always very hesitant to be critical of play calling. I'm biased, but I don't like it as a reason for getting on a team, just because you don't have all the information.
Yeah, no, that's fair, right? And as fans, we're never going to have all the information, and everyone's experiences are going to kind of shade their perspective, I guess. Is that being said, is there something that you would like to see differently offensively from Army this year? Understanding that we've had quite the shakeup at quarterback earlier in the year, and I know we've had some fumble issues, and Helms is the guy, but he wasn't supposed to be the guy. I mean, when you look at what we're doing on offense, are you satisfied, understanding that there might be some limitations there, or do you wish we were a little bit more creative?
I don't know if creative is necessarily the right word. More so, I think we have some explosive players that have not touched the ball as much as I would like to have seen those specific players. Like, don't get me wrong, Noah Short, he's a great player, but I think we have other guys who are incredibly explosive. And, if the right play is called, we'll be able to demonstrate that. And I think we're actually pretty blessed to have a good number of guys who can do a lot with the football. So I don't know that it necessarily needs to be, we need to dial up 46 trick plays against Navy. I think we just need to get more guys' hands on the ball. Yeah. And as it relates to Navy, I would love it if we just went up 21-0 right away. And I didn't have to, suffer a heart attack throughout the game like I have.
3.5 hours every.
Agonizing, hitting my stomach.
It's definitely one of the strengths of their offense that they got 4 different guys who can touch the ball and do a lot with it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I did the deep dive on Army. I did not look at Air Force or Navy because I don't have time to deal with those chumps. But when you look at the successful seasons under Jeff Monken, those successful seasons are the seasons where he has multiple 500 to 600 yard rushers, 600 yards passing, and like a QB that has between 700 and 1,000 yards rushing. So when he has that mix, it makes it very, very difficult to key in on a particular player, right? Like, or you become so efficient at it. You become so efficient at it that it's unstoppable. Like you think about the Jacoby Buchanan. Like if it's 4th and 1, you knew that Army was going to come out in the flex bone, hand it to Jacoby Buchanan, he was going to get the yards, right? That was like an unstoppable play because it was like that for 4 years, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, last year, you look at last year, it's like, okay, we had Bryson Daly, like that was the one guy. But then you go back and like look at 2018, and we had a litany of guys. So I mean, both can be true, but I think the former can only be true when that one guy is super special.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot less often. So you're better off having a lot of guys who can do a lot with the ball. And I think we have guys that we still have only begin to scratch the surface on what they're capable of doing. So, hopefully we can see more of them against Navy. I'm not holding my breath because at this point, like, I don't want them to try to do something completely off the beaten path and completely new and just throw out things that have been working. But, I think there is a lot of talent in that backfield specifically. Yeah. And if we can get some guys some touches, that would be nice to see.
So I have something provocative that I want to ask. When I think of explosiveness in the Army-Navy rivalry, I think of Keenan Reynolds and Malcolm Perry and maybe even Blake Horvath. Yes, we got some Army guys, but I guess my statement is it sometimes feels like Navy is better at putting those explosive players into action than Army is. Do y'all agree with that?
I mean, say it. They've certainly been good this year.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say. Back to Konz's point about Bryson Daly being the man that he was last season. Guess what? He still had a 1,000-yard rusher with him, right? Kanye Udoh still had 1,000 yards, right? Noah Short still had 600 yards, right? So when you have the three-headed monster, it's much more difficult to stop. That's why Navy's offense is so successful, is because you have 4 players that can touch the ball that are going to get you for chunk yardage, right? And that's really ultimately what it boils down to. Everybody, the interwebs blew up after they ran you run Samari Howard in the first to the option to the wide side, and then you run the fake rocket toss to him, and then the speed option back to Noah Short. That play has probably been there all season, right? Has it been used? No. And again, when going back to the 25% thing, we don't know everything that's going on. People could be hurt, whatever. Yeah. Maybe he had a problem with pitch position earlier in the season, and now he's finally got it straightened out. I don't know. But the reality of it is over time, what you have to do as a coach, and we all know this, but it's a lot more difficult to do over time, especially when you got younger players that are moving up that may not have played as much, is you add those new wrinkles to the playbook every week, right? With the hope by the time you get to this rivalry at the end of the year that you have your full arsenal of plays available to you, right? And that's what it is on offense and defense. Like, hey, look, if we've been using a certain scheme, we're going to use muddle huddle, we're going to use stunts, we're going to use different types of frontages. We can make those changes throughout the season, and you may not see them because, like, again, down and distance may not require it. And so it's always hard. You're guessing unless you're grading, and I hate to say that. And in order to grade actual football film, you're looking 3 to 5 hours per position group to actually dive deep enough to get the analytics that you need. And I would not suggest that you watch football like that unless you're getting paid.
That's fair.
Fair enough. Speaking of different plays, we saw a touchdown pass to a tight end in the Alamo Dome against UTSA. Konz, did Army even have tight ends back when you played? I know we didn't throw the ball, but did we even have tight ends, or were they just like extra tackles?
Well, I mean, listen, you're just kind of really showing your age, and by that, how young you are. So, I mean, when I played, that was during the Todd Berry era, and we were running an offense that I don't know that we should have been running. We were running, a pro style, and then, into the Bobby Ross era, pro style spread offense. So we were throwing the ball all over the place, and we did have tight ends. Actually, my teammate, Jared Ulikowski, had probably, and I'd have to find it, and I forget, I apologize, I don't remember who it was against, maybe Cincinnati, but he had one of the greatest hustle catches of all time. Like Aaron Alexander went up for a pass, ball got tipped. Aaron like fell to the ground. The ball kind of like bounced around. It bounced off Aaron's heel. And then Jared from the other side of the field, like tracked the ball and sprinted and dove and got his hands under it right before the ball hit the turf and made the catch. It was probably one of the best catches I've ever seen in football history. So in answer to your question, yes, we had tight ends. Yes, we threw to them.
Okay. To be fair, Dan wrote that question, not me. So I feel
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm showing my age,
so,
and in this case, it's
well,
all time.
in Dan's case, that makes sense because when Dan was there and Eisenhower was in office, then we were.
I think they didn't even have the forward pass by then.
No, but in actuality, and when Dan was there, I mean, that was our really heavy option Sutton years.
Yeah.
And then after Dan graduated, maybe Barry got hired in 98. I think, or 99.
Yeah, we had Ron Lashinsky was a pretty big target, and like those of you guys that remember the Notre Dame game back then, that was like one of the most heartbreaking heartbreaks ever, is because you go for the 2-point conversion, and if we had instant replay back then, we would have won that game because 165-pound Ivory Covington on 240 plus Ron Lashinsky. That breaks my heart. It's a very bad memory that I remember. But it's it absolutely was a pass to a tight end.
Yeah. So we'll see. I like our tight ends now. Getting
I mean, it's 100%. We've seen that over the last few years of tight ends have been one used more, but two are targeted more, and they don't just block the whole time. So
I feel like we actually have pass catchers at multiple levels for the first time in the Monken era right now.
Yeah.
Which is the thing that I do not necessarily remember thinking in the past.
No, we had one guy who could catch, right? And we never really had a quarterback that could throw that well. But yeah, I feel like our passing game definitely has gotten a little bit more consistent, where it's not a liability or something we have to do because we're in 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9 or whatever. I feel like it's something that we can do a little bit more effectively throughout the game. Cons, we're obviously heading into Army Navy, biggest game of the year if you're an Army fan. What are your thoughts on this year's matchup, and what are you most looking forward to?
I mean, the immediate thought is, wow, they're just kind of like they flip-flopped years that they're having. And very similar to Army, Army's year last year against Navy. Now Navy had the, very good year, albeit without a conference championship and not losing. Fair. And they lost the game in the conference. But Navy has been that team that the country collectively has been talking about and has been top of mind. And Army, we're 6-5. So obviously nobody's going to be really talking about us. I think I remember, the most people were talking about us was, our bad loss to Tulane on that pass. I think that was the most national coverage I can remember from this season. That is the immediate thought. I think if anything, my guess would be Navy's probably coming into the game pretty overconfident. It's interesting to see, not that we need to get too deep into this aspect of the game, but I mean, last I saw, we were 6-point underdog, which I like. I don't like being favored, because right now, we have so much to gain and really no pressure, right? Because Navy needs to beat us to cap this season. Otherwise, it's a pretty crappy season. Last year, we wanted to win the CIC, obviously, but it was nice to be able to hang our hat on going undefeated in the conference and winning a conference championship for the first time in school history. And not many schools come into a conference in year one and do as well as we did. So that made it sting a little less, albeit I wanted to beat Navy. So I think Navy has all the pressure. They've been possibly reading some of their press. So we'll see how things go. I do think, I mean, I don't see it being similar to last year in terms of the score. I see it much closer this year. But I'm actually not sure who all is healthy and who all is hurt from our side. I don't know if that information has been released yet. So I think that goes back into the play calling too, because I think you have a couple guys like, Bartosh and Smith, who I really like as, B-backs. So, A-backs. And I would like to see them get a lot of touches and open up, other parts of our run game. So we'll have to wait and see what the health report looks like, but I think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I know we just talked, Navy might be a little overconfident. What do you think is Army's biggest advantage? Do you think it's the fact that we're underdogs and we're scrappy and, we've been underperforming all year, but with moments of greatness, or do you think it's, the talent we have? What do you think is our best shot at victory?
I think it's a couple things. I think it's the fact that in our wins this year, by and large, every aspect of the game has been strong. Like we didn't kind of really luck into our wins. Certainly we got some bounces, but I think in each win, all three phases of the game were done well on our side. So I think that is certainly an advantage. So we know what we're capable of. And I don't know, because listen, I didn't win the way that these Army teams win now. But just from a competitive standpoint, I think when you can go into a game, a contest with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, you can kind of relax and play a little more free because there's no pressure, right? That you can go in and just kind of get after your opponent because no one's expecting you to do anything. I think, from all of the horrible things in my DMs and mentions from Navy's fans, I think they genuinely believe that they are just like a really far superior team to us this year. And that's fine because, honestly, I thought we were going to steamroll them last year and we saw what happened. So I think it's an advantage that we're an underdog. I think we are a fighter, that isn't given a shot. And there's something dangerous about that.
Okay. That being said, what are you most worried about?
I think we were talking about explosiveness and Navy's ability to rip off big plays. That's probably what I am most not worried, but top of mind is what I would say. They have the ability to rip off big plays. They have some talented guys on the offensive side of the ball. So I would say, if they can rip off things early, I would not prefer to try to stage a massive comeback in this game because I just don't think this is the game you want to just be fighting for your life in because you're already going to be fighting for your life before the ball's even snapped the first play. So one thing I will say, I do think part of their explosiveness is credited to their offensive coordinator, and he puts them in positions where you could put just about anybody in the backfield, and it's like, wow, that guy's so open. All you got to do is just throw the ball. So, not to take anything away from any of Navy's players, because certainly they're very talented. I think they have a very good quarterback. But there are some plays that I've seen Navy make this year where the defense is nowhere to be found. And I think that's more on the play that's called than it is the player just being head and shoulders, faster than the DB, as an example.
For whatever reason, North Texas is the only team defensively that matched up with Navy all season. And they're not even that strong of a defensive team. They just did their homework and matched up. It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I feel like, we have an advantage because we know them. We know how to game plan against them. Certainly we proved that with the current coaching staff that it's in place. They've beaten Navy before. So I take solace knowing that we got a bunch of guys in our booth and on our sideline who know what it takes to beat Navy. I'd be honestly, I don't want to say terrified. I would take a beat if we were like a bunch of first-time coaches. That would scare me, but we don't have that. So, I think we're in a good position to do well.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know on this show last year we had you on and we all talked about how comfortable and confident we were, and I wouldn't be surprised if we won by 2 or 3 touchdowns and didn't go our way, right? So you never know. It's why we play the game. but it's going to be an interesting game. I guess that's all I'll say. Conte, I know we've had you on for quite a bit, taking up a lot of your time. One more question for you. At As for Football, we're trying to legitimize ourselves a little bit, and we have the opportunity to actually go to Army Navy and do some interviews on Radio Row this year, and we're interviewing American Conference Commissioner Rich DeMarco, General Gilland, RG3, potentially Urban Meyer, Mark Ingram, all kinds of people across the media, across sports. Folks like RG3, Coach Harbaugh, Mark Ingram, you had 5 minutes. What are you going to talk to them about? What are you going to get? I mean, obviously, Coach Harbaugh is a legend, but he's not playing in the Army Navy game. So what would you want to get out of him as it relates to Army Navy?
Well, I mean, I think Harbaugh is easy, right? Because it's John Harbaugh, not Jim Harbaugh, right?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Still, but I think like guys like him, Ingram, you have these guys who have played on the largest stage possible in this sport, right? National championship, Super Bowl. I would want to know from them, it's like, how does Army Navy stack up against those experiences? Because guys that I've talked to that have played in the NFL and have played in Super Bowls, they've then come to Army Navy for the first time and they've been wide-eyed and thought, whoa, this is pretty freaking cool. Why have you guys been keeping this a secret? Now, we haven't been keeping it a secret. I've been
It's on TV every year.
Yeah, it's on the TV. It's like everybody says it's a great rivalry. You just chose not to give any attention to it.
I want to grill RG3 about not coming to West Point because he would have been a truly generational triple option quarterback.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
another thing. So, sorry, not to name drop. One time I was playing golf with Michael Vick.
Okay.
Take your thoughts of Michael Vick aside as a person. As a football player, he was incredibly explosive, especially at Virginia Tech. And I asked him, how do you think you would have done with Army's current offense? And he lit up and smiled. He's like, he said some things I'm not going to say because of the profanity aspect, but more or less he said, I would have had probably like 3,000 yards rushing had I run that offense, and it would have been a blast. He would have loved it. So I would try to take them and put them into this game in their respective roles, whether it's Coach Harbaugh, whether it's Ingram, and hey, you get to line up in Army's backfield and run that offense. Get that perspective as guys who have never played in this rivalry, who have never played in this offense. And I think it's interesting to see from the perspective of greats in this sport, how they view the game and how they view the specific teams.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Especially the thought about how this compares to Super Bowl, because that definitely was not on my radar. We've only just started putting the questions together. Rob's been doing background on, we've got a list this long of potential interviewees, and he's been doing background all week, and it's a little overwhelming trying to figure it all out. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, everyone in the Brothers going to ask him well, what do you think about the Army Navy game? So I would say try to be a little different than that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. Answer. Tell us about our boys and their service. That's not one question like that under no circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Cons, appreciate you coming on the show, giving us your insights. Any kind of final words of wisdom for the Army faithful out there as we go into Army Navy?
Yeah. Number one, just enjoy it. I had the opportunity to write a blog today about why we need Army Navy right now more than anything in college football. We are seeing the landscape change drastically. We are seeing chaos ensue from the college football playoff, who's in, who's out. And I think you're seeing a lot of people that are supposed to be stewards of the game and have massive platforms and a lot of respect. And I don't know that I necessarily love the message that some of them are putting out there. Like, hey, let's just throw up our hands and abandon college football and just accept this is the direction the game is going. So we just have to accept it and move on. I don't buy that. I think there are aspects of college football that can easily be maintained if we just put forth a little effort. And it's even easier for Army Navy to maintain that mystique and the tradition of this game. So take a step back when you're going in to watch the game on Saturday and just appreciate what we get to watch, what we get to be a part of. I would say this is easier said than done. Put your faith in the players and put your faith in the coaches. I promise you, they're trying to win the game. You're sitting on your couch for a reason and not in the booth calling plays.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Maybe you like to think you would have called a better play, but when you have 32 seconds or less to try to understand what the down and distance and the situation is and what you think the other coach is going to call, and then you have to call a play based on all this prep you've been doing for 2 weeks, understand doing all that in 32 seconds or less, 25 seconds, it's a lot harder than sitting on your couch and screaming at the TV. So just keep that perspective as well. And then last thing I would say is just enjoy it. I think the weather is going to be pretty great, albeit maybe a little bit cold, but I think it's going to be good football weather. I'm hopeful that it gets cold and Navy's fingers get a little cold trying to carry that football, and that plays a factor. But it's the greatest rivalry in sports. We all know that. And now more than ever, I think we got to just grab it, hold tight, pull it down into our foxhole, and protect the sanctity of this game at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't disagree. I know a lot of us have watched the drama unfold and the way Notre Dame has responded to getting left out of the playoffs and some other teams who were given an opportunity and didn't want to take it. So, Cons, absolutely agree. Army-Navy is special and looking forward to it. Thanks again for being on the show and your perspective and your continued support of As for Football and Army football as a whole. We'll see you on Saturday.
Thank you. I really always appreciate coming on this show. So thank you very much for the invite. As always, I appreciate what you guys do for our fan base and keeping everybody so well informed on our opponents and doing the scouting report and doing all the legwork. It goes a long way. And I do think this is very important to have for Army football, the fan perspective, the grad perspective podcast here and show. So I think it's really important what you guys do. And I would say, sorry, I'm going on and on here. You guys carry more weight than you might realize. Because I think from my own perspective, when you're just talking to a screen or you're sitting in a studio talking to somebody, you forget that there's going to be them people on the other end that actually listen and hear what you have to say. And you're always surprised that like, oh, that person listened to our episode. There's a lot of people that listen to this show. I think that's a responsibility. I think you guys do a great job with that responsibility. So thank you for being stewards.
That's like a different show talking about that, but thank you very much. We really appreciate that.
So, all right.
Appreciate
Beat
that.
Navy.
Beat 'em.
All right. Rob, you want to get Trigger Joe on here? Oh, there he is.
So Joe's been in the green room.
Thanks for hanging around, Joe. Go ahead.
No, yeah, just I was listening to the whole thing, so I know how emotions are running high, and this is the same caliber rivalry cannot be experienced outside of Michigan, Ohio State, other than Army Navy, and we just had that here not too long ago. So I remember how tense it was around Ann Arbor.
Have you ever watched a little game called the Iron Bowl, maybe? And just throwing that out there, but whatever.
Yeah, they can have it.
Yeah, speaking of people that can have it, we're going to let someone in the college football pantheon
Got to get a little bit better for that to mean more to me.
For sure.
Look, it's the Blue Falcon.
Hey, this is not typically part of the Army football show, but Joe has been chomping at the bit, so much so that he even called me today that he has to put this out there before we continue to talk about Army's future and the Army-Navy game. Go for it, Joe.
Oh, I can't. We're saturated with it. So it's like every minute further that you go without talking about Notre Dame, you're like 10,000 farther in the line behind people that have talked about Notre Dame. They just did an interview with not Rich Eisen, another ESPN personality that's got his own show, Dan Patrick. And they're still bitching. Now they're saying that the ACC relationship has been damaged between them. Well, when Irish Eyes went a-crying when the playoff show happened, let me tell you something. The rest of the world said, man up. We don't want to hear it. We've told you for decades, join a conference and eliminate all this confusion. And we're sorry that you don't believe your own meritocracy can replace the money that the NBC contract gives you. But the Big Ten agrees with you. I think you'd be irrelevant in the Big Ten. And I think you know that. So don't go crying because you couldn't pull the wool over everybody's eyes when the 2 top 10 teams you played, you lost to. Okay? Beating up on Navy and Boston College and Stanford and Syracuse didn't work this year. Cry to somebody else, but for the love of God, don't expect anyone to feel sorry for Notre Dame for another 100 years for taking your ball and going home and saying, yeah, no, we're not going to play anymore. Like, you know who has a right to say I'm not going to play anymore? Jeremiah Love, because he's probably going to get drafted in the first round. But to say the university is above going to a bowl beneath the playoffs, I've got an NCO, an infantryman response for that I will not say amongst gentlemen. It's 2 words, 7 letters. You played the system for so long, Notre Dame, to confuse everybody that you're this national powerhouse. Well, look what happened to Penn State when they stopped being independent. Look what happened to Nebraska when they joined the Big Ten. It's stuff like that. Like, and I'm not saying it's just the Big Ten. Join the ACC. Join any conference. Take a page out of James Madison's book because their season is still continuing because they were a conference champion. And I'll say no more about Notre Dame, but they're definitely the Blue Falcon of this bowl season.
Thanks, Joe.
I got to say, the problem is not that there are too few teams in the playoff. We don't need to expand the playoff. The problem is there are too many. There are 3 or maybe 4 teams with a realistic chance to win the Natty, and then there are 8 or maybe 9 hangers-on.
Sure.
Yeah,
So,
and the other part of it is like look, for James Madison, great on him. For Tulane, great on him. But guess what, man? Like, there's no way that you're going to pull 4 upsets in a row. You know what I mean? Like the odds are stacked against you, and we see the same thing in college basketball. Do we think like a number 16 seed is going to come in and freaking smoke somebody? Maybe.
It's happened once.
Yeah, not very likely.
I mean,
yeah. Well, while we're talking about bowl games, if you're living under a rock and you didn't know this, Army drew the Fenway Bowl versus UConn. We think this is an awesome matchup against a significant regional rival that the Black Knights no longer play because of the American Conference tie-in. Army used to play UConn virtually every year. And rumors ahead of the bowl announcement suggested that Army fans might be disappointed. I don't see it, right? We've played in the Liberty Bowl and we've played in the Armed Forces Bowl like 43 times. So I think this is great. We're playing in a different part of the country. We're playing in a different bowl game. It's a $2 million payout. It's a historic venue. It's one of the Americans' top tier tie-ins as a conference. And oh, by the way, UConn had a great season. They finished 9-3. They beat Duke. They become a legitimately interesting team when 2 or 3 years ago, they could barely scrape together 2 or 3 wins. Guys, Dan, I know you're pumped because you live in New England, so this is super convenient for you. But guys, what do we think about this game beyond the location? Are we happy about this opportunity?
I love it. I'm super happy about it. Obviously I live in Connecticut. UConn is the local team. I think people have the wrong idea about UConn. I mean, they're 1,000% more likely to join the Big 12 or the ACC than they are to drop down to the American or the MAC. That's a good team, and they have resources if they choose to use them. Right now they're using them on basketball, but they have a lot of stroke, or could if they put their money where their mouth is. Yeah, I'm excited. We are skiing that day, so we're definitely not going, for better or worse. And tickets are $125, so obviously they think somebody's showing up.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that if you didn't watch the Secretary's Cup, they did it up for Coast Guard Merchant Marine Academy. I mean, there was like a huge fan festival. There were like movie star, like I saw like some of the guys from like Terminal List were there, and like a whole bunch of different actors and actresses. And they had both the secretaries actually showed up for the game, which was pretty amazing. So they did it up at Fenway, and that was for, Division III college football rivalry. So imagine what they're going to do for, a major market game. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Well, let's talk Army Navy, right? We've been talking about a little bit about Army Navy, a little bit about Notre Dame, talking about football. Let's focus on Army Navy. We're going to give you your Army Navy preview. We're going to start with Navy season review. Mids are currently 9-2 with 7-1 in the American. They won a lot of games to start the season. They lost to University of North Texas, dropped the game at Notre Dame. And at that point, I think we all kind of expected a late season collapse. We saw that a little bit last year of, Navy would perform very well in some games and then they would have some injuries. I know Blake Horvath got hurt and I admittedly kind of thought things were going to fall off a cliff and they didn't. They beat USF and Memphis. They closed out the season strong. Unfortunately for them, the way their Notre Dame game played out really hurt their standing within the CFP, and therefore the tiebreakers against Tulane for the American Conference Championships. Their fan base was very upset with the fact that they were not invited to the American Conference Championships. Still, though, this is an excellent team that has had a very good season. They run what we're calling a sling T offense. Dan, why don't you break that down for us and what we can expect? I know we talked a little bit about the explosiveness and the variability that they have compared to some years past where it was all riding on one player. This is a little bit of a different look from Navy than we've seen in the past. So if you could break that down.
Yeah, they've got 4 firstie skill position players who've played together all 4 years that really make this thing go. Obviously, quarterback Blake Horvath is the headliner. He's gone 81 of 131 passing. It's about 62% for almost 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns against 5 picks, just 4 sacks, which is incredible. Also leads the team in rushing, 1,000 yards, about 6 yards a carry, 14 rushing touchdowns. By way of comparison, it's like Ahmad Bradshaw numbers in 2017, but he's also a good passer. He's backed up by fullback Alex Teska, 133 carries, 772 yards, almost 6 yards per carry, 9 rushing touchdowns. Man, that is good work if you can get it. And then they've got 2 wide receivers, Eli Heidenreich and Brandon Chapman, who are really more in like Army slot back role. Both guys have about 60 carries for about 400 yards. Heidenreich adds 40 receptions for 800 yards and 4 touchdowns. Chapman and Teska both together have about 15 receptions, but these are the guys who get it done, right? Horvath, Teska, Heidenreich, Chapman, probably in that order. And since they're all firsties, they've all been playing under this system for a while. Like they can all make the reads and understand how the offense is changing in accordance with what the defense is doing. And that is a huge part of what makes this thing work. It'll be super interesting to see how it works when they don't have 4 guys who've been playing together for 4 years next year. On an important note, though, especially for this game, this Navy team does tend to put the ball on the ground a lot. So despite Army's disastrous advantage, the Black Knights have a serious advantage in turnover margin. Army currently stands 35th at +5, which is incredible if you will think back to where we were in the first month of the season. By comparison, Navy is 67th at +1. They've lost 6 fumbles in addition to their 5 interceptions. And that's only their fumbles lost. These guys fumbled 4 separate times against Memphis, but only lost 1 of them. So if you want something to really watch out for these guys putting the ball on the deck in a freezing cold game on Saturday.
Yeah. Rob, it's going to be on the Army defense to get those turnovers. We have had our problems with fumbles here and there. Tell us about Navy's defense and what the Army team is going to be running into.
All right, so Navy's defense, their defense isn't as solid as they were last year, but they're still decent against the run. That's not surprising, seeing that it's an option offense. You're going to pick up, tricks of the trade of defending the run against them. Their defensive line is their strength. They're allowing 143.2 yards a game, but that's 4.1 yards to carry. It's a similar statistics to what Army has allowed, but Navy is way better against the pass or the run than they are the pass. The mids allow 255 yards passing. Opponents complete about 65% of their passes against the defense. They only have 5 interceptions on the season. Army gives up way less yardage overall and has generated more interceptions just by playing a different scheme. Navy doesn't play a soft zone. They contest all the short throws. So by consequence, they get beat over the top quite a bit, and that's why they end up in shootouts, like gunslinging. Like it's going to be they're set to play that, right? They stop all the short stuff, and then they let people get over the top on them. They get deep. However, they're better on third down for some reason this season. And that's really the sticking point for Army as well, is just that third down getting off the field percentage is one of the rough spots there for the Army defense as well. Linebacker Mark Anthony Parker leads the team with 88 tackles, 2 sacks, interception, and fumble recovery. But the guy to watch this week is defensive tackle Landon Robinson, no relation. Dude has 54 tackles and 6.5 sacks. He could be a problem. Depending upon where he lines up, we've seen it in the past that Army sometimes struggles with like a massive nose tackle that is just wreaking havoc, and that is the concern with that guy.
Yeah. Well, while we're giving disclaimers about who we're not related to, Horvath is a very common name in Hungary. It's like Smith or Jones. I am not related to Blake Horvath. He's not a cousin. Have no relation. Don't know him. Never heard of him until he started playing for Navy. So don't come for me and like it's my brother. It's not. Okay. I don't know the guy. All right, hey, let's talk special teams. Punter, place kicker Nathan Kirkwood is 46 for 46 on PATs and 9 for 10s on field goals with only miss from 40 plus. That's pretty good, right? In a game that is usually decided by a couple points, having a good kicker is not a bad thing. Jacob Carlson had to punt 4 times against Memphis, averaged about 45 yards a kick with a long of 54, dropped 2 inside the 20 with no touchbacks. Like we've kind of talked about, it's going to be cold out there, right? We're expecting dry conditions. Highs in the lower 40s. I think 44 is what we've seen. Lows in the upper 20s. It might favor Army against a team that's been a little fumble-fingered. And Army's been playing in those conditions longer than Navy, being a little further north. Betting line, Army plus 6.5. Army plus 6.5. Over-unders at 39.5. Expect that probably to shift as we get a little bit closer. Guys, let's get thoughts on the matchup. Joe, we'll start with you as our enlisted friend. What's your opinion on this matchup as a football fan, then also as a enlisted member of the military?
Well, first to dovetail off the special teams, kickers are important. Ask Ohio State. I think that this game 100% is going to be closer than 6.5. That's something that I do. That's something that we do over at VTT. We look at sports books a lot, and I don't see, with the emotion and the way this game usually is played and how Army has played up to the level of their competition several times this year, and most of their games have been super tight. I mean, for crying out loud, they had Tulane down 7 going into the 4th quarter. I think they keep this game one. If they can do that with Tulane, they can do it with Navy. And if you add the common opponent, I know football math doesn't work. Look at the North Texas games and how each team played them. If they can do that with them, they can do it with Navy. And I believe Army keeps this game close. And if I think they're keeping it close, I'm not going with Navy. I'm going to say Army gets it done in an absolute mud-filled, snow-filled slop fest. 17-10. But I do believe 39 points will not be reached. I do believe 39 points will be unattainable. It's going to be an under.
Very good. Thanks, Joe.
Sorry, I don't have more of the
Thanks, Joe.
No, you're good.
So
You're
what's
good.
your take?
Because it's more of
you're
a
good.
half
You're good.
follow, off.
You're good. Go ahead, Rob.
All right, yeah. So, I think defensive stats are going to be the most important thing, right? So Army's defense looks pretty good. They're 23rd in points allowed. They're 36th nationally in yards allowed. They're, yards per play, right in the middle of the pack at 5.6 yards per play. The most concerning part is third down conversion percentage. It's pretty high for Army. They have a difficulty getting off the field, and opponent red zone scoring. They're 28th in the nation with red zone scoring. So what it means is, if they're not thrown over the top, you're probably not going to score. It's bend but don't break, which is the Army defense. We know that. We've seen that for years. The difficulty really is the comparison of the strength of schedule, because Army has played some pretty tough opponents this season, to include Tarleton State, right? Those guys are currently whooping up on everybody in the FCS tournament as we speak. And so that shows you a little bit of a difference. I mean, with the exception of the Notre Dame game, Navy's schedule is considered significantly softer than Army's. And so you get a lot of false positives of success when you're playing teams that aren't as good. And then the other part of it is, which is super scary, is Navy's been in a bunch of shootouts. They've only manufactured one offensive blowout this season, and that was against VMI. So, like Joe said, expect a close game, expect it to be sloppy, both teams are going to make mistakes in the first half. Whoever cleans up the second half, or if we're going to go with the contemporary wisdom of college football, whoever wins the middle 8 and has the most explosives is probably going to win the game. Leaning hard on Army, I think Army has discovered some weapons that they have not touched all season, and so now they're going to tap into that. My only fear is, them being apprehensive about setting the edge because of the weather, right? So if it's a crappy game, you're probably not going to see a lot of option. So look for the QB power, look for the fullbacks to get involved, but doesn't mean you can't throw, right? And if those short passes that we're working with the tight ends come to play, I think that'll be good. I think the defense is going to ball hawk as they always do. And I think Horvath's going to throw a pick. I mean, he's reading his own mail. He's been invited to, New York City for the Heisman stuff, like all the other things. It's just a distraction.
Has he really been invited?
Well, they said he's a finalist. Hey, guess what, man? Just keep eating that rat poison.
Yeah.
Like just keep feeding yourself that rat poison
early to get.
The mouse in the trap is always wondering why the food was free. Yeah.
Speaking personally, I'm super happy that the Army team is coming in as an underdog. Like, I don't know that I need the line to slide to 10, but I definitely need the Army team in the locker room pissed as all hell because nobody thinks that they're any good. I honestly can't wait to tell Navy Soup that there's no way in hell that Army can win the game, and just to see what he says. Because Army psychology is so much better when they come in. I mean, nobody thought they were going to beat UTSA on the Dome, and yet here we are, right? If there's one thing that this game is about, to agree with Rob, it's all about tackling. You look at the games that Army lost, even Tarleton State, definitely North Texas, even the Tulsa game, it's all about tackling. When they tackle well, they play well. When they don't tackle well, they lose a game. And, if you're Army, you got to run the ball and stop the run and hold on to it. And so if they're tackling, they're stopping the run. And if they're not tackling, they're not stopping the run. So, yeah, that's it. Like you said, got some actual weapons in the passing game, got a receiver, got a slot backs, 2 of them, got tight ends. I think they're going to need to throw some to those guys. And turnovers, tackling and turnovers. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. It's every Army Navy game, it feels like comes down to one or two moments. Whether that's Navy missing a field goal to win the game, but Bennett Mooring, pushing it wide left with 3 seconds left, or it's an early fumble, right? That kind of puts then Army behind a little bit, and we feel like we can never quite catch up because we lost that possession. Navy got points, so it's going to be really interesting to see how we execute and how this game goes, right? I think you can throw out a lot of the things that you look at in a normal football game because this is a rivalry game. Like Joe was saying, you have the game, you have the Iron Bowl, you have Army Navy, you have these. It doesn't matter how good or bad the team is. Auburn was supposed to get their butts kicked, and it was a fairly competitive game against Alabama. In the same thing, we see that every year. It seems like in the game, the last 4 or 5 years, whether or not Michigan's been a good team, they still have managed to beat Ohio State. So I think when you look at the Army Navy game, you have to look at it holistically and not. It's not going to be possible to say, well, Army's going to win or Navy's going to win. It's going to come down to these moments, almost like these coin toss moments of, hey, we got this fumble, and we, because of that, we're able to get points, and then because of we know that possession is going to be at a premium, whatever it might be. So I guess what I'm looking for is the Army team to show up, right? We've seen flashes of greatness from this team. This is the team that beat Kansas State in Manhattan. It's also the team that lost at home to an FCS team, right? So we have seen flashes of greatness from this Army team. And ultimately, Army needs to show up and play their best game of football, right? Like Dan said, unfortunately, this is one of those years where it's a one-game season. And yes, going to Fenway Bowl is incredible. And I'm so happy that we get that opportunity. I hope we beat the crap out of UConn. But that becomes a consolation prize if we lose to Navy. And so this is, far and away the most important game of the season. And, like Con says, we have to trust the coaches and the players that they're going to do the preparation they need to do to show up to win the game on Saturday. And that's that.
You ready to do something else?
Let's do something else.
Fact
That is correct.
or fiction?
Incorrect.
I was waiting for you to just kind of cut me off with that. So
Oh, I was thinking about it. That almost happened.
saw that little look in your eye. So let's review fact or fictions for the last couple of weeks. Dan said North Texas finishes with more rushing yardage than Tulane. That is fiction. Rob said North Texas makes a 12-team playoff. That is also fiction. Everybody said fact. They got smoked and they're headed to the Armed Forces Bowl, ironically enough. Tulane will be the American Conference representative in the college football playoff. Dano, we'll give it to you first. Take us through your fact or fiction.
Fact or fiction, Army throws two touchdown passes this week.
Oof. That's tough. I'm going to say fact, but I think one of them's going to be a Philly special.
Oh, good God. I don't know how much I believe this, but I sort of feel like they need to. And dude, they got to roll Cale Helms out of the pocket. Move the pocket, give him a chance to throw on the run. That is like his best thing, and they got to take advantage. So I'm going to say fact, but if he ends up running those bootlegs in, then yeah, man, I'll take it. Jordan?
I'm going to say fiction. I think we might get one, but two from an Army team is aggressive. I know why you're asking this, because Navy is better defensively. They're better against the run than the pass. And I think we probably will throw a little bit more than we have in Army Navy games of yesteryear. But two's a lot in my opinion. So I'm going to say fiction.
Fair enough. Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to say fiction as well. I think they get one.
All right. I'll take it. I mean, don't get me wrong. One is a fully acceptable answer, but all right, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I'm going to say fact or fiction. Army gets an interception this week. It's going to be hard to do that because, again, like a lot of the time, getting in position is always easy. But when it's cold and that ball's moving pretty fast, catching it is a little bit more difficult. And, in typical cliche fashion of college football, if he had better hands, he'd be a receiver. So we have to consider that. But I think, Army's going to get a pick. We've got some ball hawking safeties. And Jaden Mays stepped up last week and is playing probably his best football that we've seen this season. And I think, with the defensive backfield that we have, we'll probably get one, maybe even a tip pass into an interception, the old Oski play.
I certainly would not be surprised, but if I had to bet on fumble or interception, I would bet on fumble. Horvath has a little bit of the old Ahmad Bradshaw. I dropped the snap. Oh crap. He has a little bit of that going on. So I'll take fiction.
I'll take fiction too. I agree with Dan. I think I think we will recover a fumble, but I don't know about an interception.
Joe?
I'm going to say fact, but it's going to be on a wobbler that he throws while getting hit, and it's going to be one of those ones that's like a gift-wrapped interception. I think it's going to be one that wobbles and lands in maybe a linebacker's lap.
Well, okay, we'll take that.
So I'll say fact.
I'm going to take Cons. Cons did me the favor of filling out a fact or fiction question. And since he's no longer on, I'm going to go ahead and steal his. Army blocks a kick. That's a field goal or a punt. Army blocks. Dan, what do you think?
I haven't watched Navy kick, so I don't have an opinion on how they are. But I will say fact just on the basis that I can't remember Army blocking a punt this season, and usually they're good for at least one or two. So screw it. I say fact, even though it's like, trying to hit a needle in a haystack or whatever.
Rob?
I want to say fact. I saw quite a few punts get blocked this weekend, and I think it's coming.
Joe?
I'm going to say fiction just to go against the grain.
Okay. I'm going to say fact too, right? Dan, I agree with you. Usually we get one or two. We haven't seen that, so it's time, right? All right, and then
James Pagano out of the Firsty Club. Brady Anderson goes 75 yards and one score. Fact or fiction?
The two-parters are always fiction.
I'm gonna say fiction just because Anderson is more like a possession receiver. We haven't seen him. I don't know how strongly I believe they can hit him in stride. Love Hallam's, but he tends to throw high and behind. And Anderson has an amazing catching radius, but I don't know that he's going to catch one running away.
Yeah.
Fiction. I asked the obvious factor fiction since
I
didn't fill one in, but
go ahead, Joe.
Army wins this football game outright. Factor fiction.
Oh, I'm not even touching that one.
No,
under no circumstances.
Is that against the rules?
No,
that one's against the rules. No, sorry.
All right.
I mean, you can ask it, but I'm not touching that one.
I'm not going to curse it. See, just Jordan, am I revealing yet that I'm from Big Ten country? And
yeah,
just
100%.
Just to give the Iron Boulder props, the first time I mentioned Michigan in basic training, my drill sergeant was from Auburn. He said, "We've never heard of them. This is SEC country." So every time I hear it, that's why I say it back. It's not disrespect.
No, I get that. I get that. But I grew up in Florida, and I was like, SEC, whatever. I guess it's closer in the Big Ten. But like living in Alabama now, it's.
I asked a superstitious factor fiction. I get that. I didn't get the rules of the game. No, I agree. It's definitely the playing field is leveled now that everyone can pay everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Rob, you want to talk about our favorite thing? I feel like I've been talking here.
Yeah, so our favorite thing, guess what, guys? We are going to be on Radio Row on Friday. So please, if you're not following us on Ask for Football, get on all the socials, follow all of our personalities, because you're going to have myself, Omar, Dano, and Lynn. We're going to be running around the USAA Media Row, trying to collect as many interviews and the fan experience as we can. The list of people is massive, and we have been trying to go through all of them cold to herd to make sure we have the right folks to talk to, but certainly want to get some of your questions in there. So if you have some, kind of feed them to us, because we are building this plane in flight, but we certainly want to have the most intelligent questions possible when we go out there. This is a great opportunity for us as a very small media company to have this opportunity to kind of sit in with some of the big boys and have some conversations. But we're going to be producing content all day long and putting it on social. So we hope that you guys are following us and you have the opportunity to see everything that we're doing while we're in Baltimore.
Yeah, just real quick. I know we're running late. Sorry, the show's been long, but it is Army Navy. What are you going to do? James Pagano asks what time. I think we're going to kick off around 8:30 or 9. We're going to be streaming everything live to YouTube, exactly like we're doing right now. Going to look exactly like this, except we're all going to be sitting in the same place for once. Yeah, totally amazing. Thanks, Ray. And yeah, that's it. Guys, go Army, beat Navy.
Beat the hell out of the Squids. Thanks for listening to the Ask for Football College Football Roundtable. Join the AFF team next week for more hot takes and college football analysis. If you like the show and you want to support us, consider signing up for our Patreon at Ask for Football, or opting into our mailing list at askforfootball.com/subscribe. We'll catch you guys next week, and as always, beat Navy.